Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another TheeSportsScoop video. Back recording some videos today. As you saw by the title, we're going to be going over why I think Deshaun Watson would be a perfect fit for Seattle, why I do think it would be a realistic trade, obviously with them getting a ton of capital off the Russell Wilson trade. And yeah, we obviously saw that Deshaun Watson was just will not be criminally charged for his 22 charges that he had of sexual assault that kept him, that obviously impeded him playing last season. But again, we'll be going over why I think he'd be a great fit for Seattle. And as always, comment any teams you think he should go to down below. Breaking it all down. Go check out the new podcast if you haven't. That was dropped yesterday. We go over a ton of other stuff. Go over the Russell Wilson trade, Carson Wentz, free agency, NFL draft, a ton of stuff over there. So go check that out. Follow us on social media. And without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so I think it's definitely an interesting thing with Deshaun Watson because we know that this guy is 26 years old and really has his prime years ahead of him. And from what we've seen of him so far, the sky's the limit really for him, and we know how good he can be. We know that he has that talent, obviously, when he came out of Clemson. But as you saw today, we're specifically going to be talking about Deshaun Watson and why I do think he fits a lot with the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, we know the capital that they just got from trading away Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. In that trade, they acquired 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and obviously Shelby Harris, Noah Fant, Drew Lock, and then the Seahawks gave Wilson and a 5th. I might be wrong on that. Go check out our Instagram. We posted the full trade breakdown there. But that, I think the only reason that this is realistic now for the Seahawks, obviously if they still had Wilson, they wouldn't trade for him. But they got a ton of value for Russell Wilson, and arguably didn't get enough value. Again, if you want to see our full reaction to that, go check out the podcast. But I do think that right now the Seahawks are at a very advantageous position to go get Deshaun Watson. Now the question comes down to, if you're the Seahawks, obviously we know their management isn't great. Paul Allen, since they haven't had as their general manager and his daughter's been in charge, they've just really gone downhill, and kind of Seattle sports as a whole has been. Not a big fan of Pete Carroll. Again, losing record without Russell Wilson, and then trades him away, and was probably the guy who signed off on that trade. I think he should go. The question that comes down to when it comes to Deshaun Watson is, do they want to go look at a guy like Malik Willis, go look at a guy like Kenny Pickett, go look at a guy like Matt Corral, Sam Howell in the draft, and then and obviously not have to give out a ton of cap space, because if they were to trade for Deshaun Watson, he's gonna they're gonna have to give up those 2 first-round picks. It's gonna be a huge trade for them. But I do think if you're the Seahawks, the question really comes down to, if we get Deshaun Watson, does it make us, are we, if anything, are we even better than we were with Russell Wilson? Because they cut Bobby Wagner, which is a big loss. But assuming they get Watson, I would then assume that DK stays. I would assume that Lockett stays. You have Chris Carson. The offensive line still needs to be built up. But that offense would be fantastic with Deshaun Watson at the helm. He's kind of like a younger, bigger Russell Wilson. Obviously, can run. Their styles of play are very similar. Very mobile, can run, strong arms, accurate. Deshaun Watson is the whole package. He's a fantastic quarterback. So I think in terms of why I made this video, I think he would fit that team very well, and I think he would be able to just kind of go in and continually make them just as good as they were for when they had Wilson. If anything, make them better. Again, do they keep on to DK Metcalf? That's the whole thing. I think DK right now probably wants to be traded. I don't think he would want to stay in Seattle. His team looks like they're going to rebuild. DK is getting to starting to get up there into the peak of his career. He doesn't want to spend his prime years in Seattle when they're not obviously competing for anything, when they're rebuilding. And we know how big of a deal Wilson and Wagner were to him when he was there. So I think that's definitely a part. If they go get Deshaun Watson, DK, you would assume that you retain the rest of the assets on that offense. But then the question still comes down to, you still have Pete Carroll. I'm not a big fan of him. I think they need to move on from him. That's another option, or another issue. I think that will probably be addressed next offseason if it were to. And again, you're trading for Deshaun Watson. It's probably going to cost you 3 firsts, 2 seconds, some players. So then again, is it that kind of thing where you just flip Shelby Harris, Noah Fant, and Drew Lock, or some package of that where you just go flip the guys that you had to the Texans. Obviously, the Texans, we know, have Brevin Jordan, so they might not want a tight end like that. But again, I think there's assets there. But then it also comes down to, if they want Watson, are we going to have to go send DK over? Are we going to have to go send Tyler Lockett? Are we going to have to send one of the key assets? And then it kind of comes down to really what's the point? Because you're going to bring in Deshaun Watson, but you're losing a ton of capital, and you're not going to have a lot of offensive weapons. So it's kind of like, what's the point of giving up all that for Watson if he's not even going to have the weapons on offense if they were to give DK to the Texans? And then it's like, why would DK want to go to the Texans? They're rebuilding. Again, not saying he wouldn't be able to do anything, but it's kind of, that to me, it's definitely a trade where, even as someone who analyzes football, it's really hard to decipher what the deal would be, because a lot of factors go into how this team would, or how each team would deal with obviously the Texans. With, it's not as much on the Texans side, it's how would the Seahawks go about trading for him, because you're going to lose a ton of capital, but is it more you're trading draft capital over actual players like a DK Metcalf, who's probably the most valuable guy on that team right now? So again, that's what it comes down to. You obviously lost Bobby Wagner, which is a big deal, as we touched on before. So that defense definitely needs some help. So that's what. And then again, I think with Deshaun Watson, and I kind of said this with we did more quarterback pick. We did our quarterback predictions a week or so ago, and obviously the Russell Wilson trade hadn't happened yet, so we didn't do the Seahawks. But, the thing I was saying, and we posted the clip on TikTok and Instagram of me kind of saying I think Jimmy Garoppolo would be perfect for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're in quite similar situations, the Seahawks and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, Tampa Bay in a bit of a better one. But it's kind of this thing where if Jimmy Garoppolo were to go in, if they were to trade for him, how much worse realistically do they become? Obviously, and again, I know Tom Brady's fantastic. I'm not saying Jimmy Garoppolo is just as good as Tom Brady, but I do think he would be able to bring them to the playoffs. Jimmy Garoppolo wins. So it's kind of the same thing. If anything, it's an upgrade over Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson's fantastic. And it would be crazy to see a team flip a top 5 quarterback and then go trade for a top 5 guy. So again, it would make for quite an interesting offseason. Free agency hasn't even started yet. And then it comes down to, really, when would they trade him? Are they going to look to trade him after free agency? Are they going to look to trade for him after or actually it wouldn't be after the draft. It would have to be before, because they're going to have to send some picks over. But again, I think just the Seahawks are in a very advantageous position with the picks they've acquired. And I think that's what it comes down to, because you look at the other teams that want Watson, the Vikings, the Browns, Panthers, maybe the Eagles. None of the teams, and besides the Eagles, I guess, but I would really think it would be very stupid for them to go trade for Deshaun Watson. I think Hurts has shown he can be their guy. That's another conversation. But I think the Seahawks are in the best position because, there's things to offer to Deshaun Watson. You're going to a team that has potential. And then there's obviously things to offer to the Texans. And I think, it might be one of those things where the Texans lower their cost for Watson, and maybe they only want the 2 first-rounders, and maybe you can go get him for that much. But if Russell Wilson, who's an older quarterback, not as good, smaller, the physical specimen that Deshaun Watson is unlike any other quarterback. Deshaun Watson's a top 5 guy, top 3 guy. He can compete with the best quarterbacks. So you're really going and getting you're getting a game changer quarterback, and then add to the fact that he's 26. So that to me is why it's obviously such a huge kind of what if. What are they going to send over? It's definitely very hard. And again, it comes down to the thing that I was talking about. Is it going to cost them 3 first-rounders? Because that's a lot of. That is a ridiculous amount of capital. But I really do think they go down that other path. They go draft Malik Willis, go draft maybe an offensive lineman, defensive player, go replace Bobby Wagner in the draft, and then the Seahawks are there. So it definitely comes down to kind of what mindset you are as an NFL fan. Are you a guy who likes being good? If you're a Seahawks fan, do you want to just be good? Again, go get Watson. The capital, it is what it is. You got to send a ton of draft capital, a ton of just, obviously you're going to have to trade a lot over to the Texans. Or you're the kind of guy where it's like, look, Russell Wilson was huge. I really like this franchise. I don't think right now we're in the best kind of situation with management-wise, because we know we have the roster for it. Are we in the best situation management-wise to go get a guy like Deshaun Watson, give a ton of capital? Will he really lead us to a Super Bowl? We haven't seen him play in a year. We know obviously we know how good he can be. Or do we kind of take the chances, go get a quarterback to compete with Drew Lock, kind of just cut our losses and just and fully commit to this rebuild? Because if you go get Deshaun Watson, you're not committing to the rebuild, because again, you're losing all the capital. So again, I think it's definitely a good problem to have if you're a Seahawks fan, because on one side you could get Deshaun Watson, on the other side you could go get a guy like Malik Willis, who I think could be. If as an analyst, my whole thing I've been saying Malik Willis. If I'm the Seahawks, that's the quarterback I'm going for in the draft. So my whole thing would be, look, Malik Willis can be an absolute monster in the NFL if coached right. So, at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it's a what if. 5 years in the future, they drafted Malik Willis. He becomes fantastic, and they're like, wow, thank God we didn't trade for Deshaun Watson. A lot of what ifs in football. That's kind of what it comes down to in the offseason. But I do think it's very, very, very interesting, and it'll definitely come down to kind of what the Seahawks are looking to do when it comes to future-wise, because this is all what it looks down to. Like, you either commit to the rebuild or you go and cut your losses and kind of just go get Deshaun Watson and immediately compete. Because that division, if you don't get Deshaun Watson, the Seahawks are going to be very bad next year if they don't get Watson, or unless Malik Willis is fantastic. You're going to be playing the 49ers twice. You're playing the Rams, who just won the Super Bowl twice. You're playing the Cardinals twice. Like, it's arguably the hardest division in football. Again, it is the NFC, so once you get out of that division, it definitely is easier than the AFC. But which again is something that they'll take into account. But that division is very, very tough. But let me know what you guys think about Deshaun Watson. Where do you think he will end up this offseason? Really, let me know what you think down below. Follow us on social media. Go check out the podcast. We'll probably be posting more another video today, a podcast clip today. And go follow us on social media. We post a ton of other stuff over there as well. My name is Cian McDermott. Hopefully you liked the video. Hopefully you thought I broke it down well enough for you. But let me know where you think Deshaun Watson will land. We have another graphic coming out with more options of where we think Deshaun Watson will land. We've already done so many videos about Deshaun Watson, so who knows? Maybe we'll do a top 5 landing spots. If you guys want that, let me know down below. But thank you so much for watching. Cian McDermott. See you next time. Enjoy the offseason, ladies and gentlemen.